guys, we have Melissa Kaiser here again. She has been on our channel for an interview before, but she's coming back on because I think Melissa and myself, we were speaking about it. I have no clue how all this happens. And I asked her to educate me, and we decided let's just do this maybe on a 2 week basis or a monthly basis, or however, whenever we have the time, but within a month's time. And this way she can come back on, she can educate me, and while she's educating me, you guys can have the information, or you guys can log in and ask her questions directly. So Melissa, take it from here. Introduce yourself once again.
Like you just said, my name is Melissa Kaiser, and I have my own consulting and training business in human trafficking and secondary traumatic stress. So those are two terms that we use in the helping profession or first responders profession, really to work with first responders, with people that might work with victims of trafficking. So my job is really just to further their education, whether through consulting with their organization or training their organization.
How big is this problem in the United States?
It's hard to even put into numbers how big it is. There's a lot of numbers out there. There's great data sources like Polaris, which is the National Human Trafficking Hotline, like National Exploited and Missing Children's website. So there's various websites and places that post really great numbers. However, it's hard to really put in perspective how massive it is. Like we talked about last time, a lot of it is online. So if you're just looking at people who are being purchased online and ads for people being sold online, the numbers are in the hundreds of thousands and millions. And, depending on the state that you're in terms of how many people are being sold and exploited just online every day. So the problem is massive in that we're not necessarily properly educating youth on the topic in general. We're not properly telling people what human trafficking means, so it just adds to the problem. And we don't necessarily protect people who are victims of trafficking, whether sex or labor trafficking, because we ultimately write off victims of human trafficking the way that we see them. We might think that they're willing prostitutes, and that's just something that people see very negatively instead of looking at them as someone who needs help, or we look at them as someone who has a drug addiction or is homeless. We just have a lot of negativity around what a human trafficking victim actually looks like in the United States. As well as a labor trafficking victim, people oftentimes write them off and assume they're an illegal immigrant that should be unwelcomed here. And so there's just so much, I guess, backlash sometimes for victims in terms of getting the help. So we're not properly educating ourselves in terms of the problem and how to stop it.
I'm going to say to myself, anything more than two sex abused people or more than one is
Hmm.
way too much.
Yeah.
In your opinion, where does it stem from?
In my personal opinion and experience, I would say it starts with the person who's trying to purchase the sex, because they're creating the demand for it. And if there was no demand, we wouldn't have people putting them in situations where they're being purchased for sex. So if there was no need for it or no demand for it, it wouldn't exist in terms of that sex and labor exploitation when people are being taken advantage of. So it starts with the market, in my opinion, in terms of, again, if there was no request or demand for it, we wouldn't have people being exploited, because that wouldn't be an option. It would be something else, to get their needs met, and that wouldn't be something that would be known. With victims, on their side of it, it really starts with some type of vulnerability most times, whether it is as like a survival need, survival could be food, shelter, baby formula for your child, paying for rent, whatever that might be. And what tends to happen then is there's someone that preys upon that vulnerability, and they say the right things. Hey, I have a couch you and your baby could sleep on for the next week. They offer these things that meet that survival need. In the back of the offender's mind, or the person that offers that, they know after so much time of grooming that they're gonna take it a step further to exploit that person. However, for the time being, they're just filling that vulnerability that person has. The vulnerability can also be love. Oftentimes it is, as even as adults, but specifically as teenagers, that need to feel loved and wanted is so strong. And so somebody is giving you that attention, that love that we all crave as human beings. And it's after so much time of that grooming process that goes on that then that exploitation and those other things start happening within that relationship.
Can I compare the drug issue, the sex abuse, sex trafficking issue? Meaning, if I never had drugs, I wouldn't know what it's about.
Hmm.
Since I've had my drug, I know what it's about and I want more.
Hmm.
Is that the case with sex trafficking? Since I've had my drug, I want more. Is that how it goes?
It's an addiction, and whether it's an addiction to sex, right, and not in asking for things that maybe you're not comfortable asking your partner for or your partner won't do for you, so you have an addiction and you're obtaining it from somebody else, or it's an addiction to power and control. For a lot of the people who are purchasing sex, there's sense of just having control over somebody else, and feeling like, because a lot of these purchasers or buyers or offenders, they have this mentality of like, once they get my money, they don't have the right to say no, right? That I get to do what I want with that person because I've paid them, or their trafficker most times is what happens. So it's this mindset of addiction of sex or addiction of power and control over another human being.
Let's speak about the two needs. One need is a sexual need, and that is the abuser, or I'm going to say the consumer. Is would that be the right term?
Yeah.
Their need is to have sex uh, in ways that they are not getting it in their lives from whoever.
Mhm.
And then the other need is by the victim, or I should say the what else should I call victim? No.
You know, it's hard because we leave it up to the victim, but obviously in this case, when you can't ask them, you could say victim or survivor. However, I'd
Survivor.
always
Okay,
encourage people to ask them, because some don't want to be referred to as either of those
I see.
terms.
So what is their need, or are they unwillingly pushed into it?
Typically, it's unwilling. They don't always realize that when they're involved in the trauma at the time. So again, if you grow up in like a family where you've been trafficked your whole life, imagine that. Like, that is truly all you know, right? Just like you and your family had your own traditions, that's all you know. That's how you grew up. It would be the same thing. Like, this is just our family dynamic. So there's that piece of it. Other times there's fear for what will happen to them if they don't comply. That's a trauma bond. So even if they act or seem willing or say they're willing, they're only doing that out of fear for their lives, or maybe there's been threats made against their family members or their pets or things of that nature, where they don't feel they have a choice. And sometimes it's also a protective mechanism we put in our brain. Like, if I convince myself enough I want to be here, it won't be so hard. It won't be, it just that idea of I've asked for this, I want this. And that's what that trafficker is telling them, right? Is instilling all of these isolated thoughts and opinions of the trafficker, where it's this idea of brainwashing these victims. And they do get brainwashed because that trafficker is who they depend on for love, for shelter, for drugs, uh, for that sense of stability, for that victim. So there's typically not someone who's willingly involved. However, when they come to us in a helping profession to protect themselves and their trafficker out of fear for what will happen if they don't, they're oftentimes going to say to us, like, we want to be here. Because the fear and the unpredictability of being truthful to yourself and to a stranger that's supposed to help you is too great.
So I have understood the need of the sexual person. I mean, the person who wants the sex.
Yeah.
I have not 100% understood the need of the victim or the survivor. Their need is basically looking for love, looking for protection,
Hmm.
looking for money, looking for something that they are lacking other than sex, but
Hmm.
something. tangible or emotional. That's
Yep.
that's their need. So now we have these two people, and the third person who is involved in this is the person who connects the dots, and he is the
Correct.
trafficker.
He or she, but yes, you're right.
What the trafficker does is, I'm just saying this, I'm not saying that I know about this.
No, this is
And
great. Yeah.
so the trafficker basically comes in, gets the person who wants the money, who wants the sex,
Hmm.
to give him the money, and he in turn promises the victim or the survivor that I will make your life better and I will get you some money if they
Hmm.
are in want of money. And that's how the business is conducted.
That's right.
There is a need for the product. I'm calling it product, sorry if it's
Hmm.
offensive, but there's a need for the product. The product is available, and the third person comes in to connect the dots. And
Hmm.
that is the entire business. It's the
Correct.
business for the trafficker, and
Hmm.
but it's not a business for the consumer and the product itself, which would be the victim.
Right. And I mean, some people might say it's a business for the consumer as well. Like they're, engaging in this, maybe it's in a massage parlor, maybe they've got a relationship with the trafficker where it does feel like a business transaction to them in that sense. And like we talked about last time, for the trafficker, the goal is money, is financial gain. For a victim, they've been promised by that trafficker, like, I'll take care of you. I protect the money. I'm the one who does all the finances. You don't have to do that. I'll make sure you're fed. Maybe they plan out where their money is going. I'm putting in a savings account so we can move to Chicago together and get that, 4-bedroom house with kids you've always wanted. It's those promises and the idea that then they're your protector, so therefore they're the financial person too. They're keeping all of that intact for you so you don't have to do it. It's kind of this idea of like they're doing you a favor by like running your business for you. Or again, if it's more forceful, it is just, this is, you just have to do this, right? Like this is just the way it is. You don't have any other option. Like go do your job, or I'll beat the crap out of you, frankly, or I'll beat the crap out of somebody that you love. And we've seen those things happen time and time again. So it's out of fear of what will happen, that they feel like they have no option.
We know the need of a person who wants sex. We know the needs of the person who's a victim, and there could be plenty, no love, no this, no that. Get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the third person comes in, um, which is the trafficker. I just
Mhm.
want to call them pimps because it's like an insult.
Yeah. I get it. Culturally, what we've done, that makes sense.
How does this person meet the victim, and how does this person also meet the buyer? Like, is there like a online service? I have girls, and is there a service that says I have these sex wanting people? Like, how does that happen?
A few different ways. The first could be online, to your point, where traffickers are posting ads literally selling humans. Like you would go on Craigslist and try to sell your lawnmower. There are sections like on Craigslist, there's an escort or a massage, or they might have taken it down now. Section where they would literally post ads of people. So purchasers of sex know this, and they can go online, and there's various websites that are specific to people being purchased for sex, and you can access that on your normal web browser. It's not a dark web thing that's hard to find. You could literally type in, where do I find sex that, I can purchase? And there are websites for it. So these traffickers will post it on the website. And then, like you're shopping, you go through and pick what you want, and you coordinate where you're meeting, and it goes forward there. So in some communities, it is word of mouth. For example, like a lot of reservations have familial trafficking where people are trafficked out of their homes by their families. And that's a lot of word of mouth in terms of people know that these kids are being sold for the parents to get their needs met, whether housing, drugs, groceries, whatever that is. So some of it's word of mouth as well. Some of it happens in massage parlors, so you just know you can show up to this massage parlor, and for a few extra bucks, they can do sexual favors for you. And that you learn a lot of times through your buddies, right? Through seeking that out and then kind of going to different massage parlors and finding the ones where that's offered. There are websites where you can look up massage parlors who sell sex. That's accessible information.
I have contacted a girl in need, or a guy,
Yes.
girl or guy in need. I have done my job of convincing this person that I am the best thing for you. I will get you the money. I'll
Hmm.
put you in the house, and I'm going to make sure that you are taken care of. So
Hmm.
I have taken care of this person. Now I go out on the internet and I place an ad like I was placing an ad in a newspaper. Is that how
Hmm.
it works?
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
place an ad on the internet and I
Hmm.
pay somebody to run my ad. Is that how it goes?
Typically they don't have to pay on these websites to place ads. I don't, to my knowledge, like Craigslist, you don't have to pay to post an ad or what have you. So where these websites are, there's different websites. You just go on and post, if you are selling sex, you would just go on there as such and post your product, like we've been talking about that product piece. And you'll post, age, their name, what maybe they're offering. There's different sexual things they'll offer you, and their height, their weight, their hair color. I mean, you're literally putting them out there, how much it costs.
If I'm placing an ad in on Facebook or Instagram or Google, I sell fine art wildlife photography. And my advertisements, when I do place my ads for the wildlife photography aspect, not the films, sometimes Facebook will send me a message saying we cannot post this
Hmm.
unless you clarify that you are not selling a line. They are so strict. Sometimes when I'm placing an ad to sell my print, my artwork, they will send me a message that we cannot post this ad because they think that I'm selling the lion itself, which is not allowed legally.
Right.
Now I'm speaking about artwork, and I'm
Hmm.
speaking about lions, not humans.
Hmm.
What you are saying to me is easier to sell a human online than my artwork.
If that was going to go on Facebook or Instagram or Google, it wouldn't happen. It would be taken down immediately, hopefully. It's places again where you go to this website for sex. There are
So it's
websites.
a different arena, so to speak.
Yes. And the problem is these websites aren't created through like our country. So we can't just shut it down because we don't legally have the right when this website was maybe created somewhere else where it's not illegal. And so we're using that website, and our, Homeland Security investigations or FBI can't say, "Hey, shut this website down." Backpage.com, which was like Craigslist, people were being sold on backpage.com, and they were shut down because that was a United States website, that there was that space to say this is illegal. We have all these cases of children being sold for sex on your website that's supposed to function like Craigslist, and so that is shut down. So part of it is just we don't have the ability to maintain it. It's legal in other countries, or not supervised, I guess. I know that's not the right word, but um, so people just who are avid purchasers of sex know where they can go to find these websites. And again, you could still do a Google search to find them.
I know because we have employees overseas as well
Hmm.
as America. And I had, I had a employee in Pakistan. Something happened to the political, whatever they were having, elections or something. I am not from there, so I don't know. And the government shut down the internet for the entire country for 3 days. 3 days the country had no internet. Now I'm talking about a third world country. They can do that. Are you saying that we can regulate what coming into our country?
I mean, could you, as a country, ban these websites where people are going? Sure, but the problem is so great. In like any crime, we have to try to stay ahead of it, which is hard because the criminals are creating new things every time we take something away. Like the minute Backpage was shut down, they came up with another website that was similar to Backpage where they could sell sex. Like there's we would constantly be having to find, shut down, find, shut down, find, shut down if it was regulated and those websites were, not
Melissa,
accessible.
I mean, please, guys, I'm not so knowledgeable over here, but I do have, I think I know, you cannot sell products on Amazon in China. So how have they shut Amazon and don't allow Amazon to come in?
In order to stop something, there has to be a legal process, but then you have to get that country to work with you. You have to get, subpoenas. You have to prove it. Like right now, backpage.com is going through the whole trial and all of that right now in our country. So, to my knowledge, in order to do that, that country would have to work with you. Well, if our people are giving that country's website money, why would they work with us, especially if it's not illegal there? Again, I don't know how Amazon in China worked that out, because you could certainly make the same argument. Well, Amazon's not getting money now because they shut it down in China, right? But it's not the process, to my knowledge, is harder than just take it off the internet. I don't know why or how, though, because to your extent, couldn't you just say this website's not allowed in America, regardless? But again, people can still access the dark web, and that's not accessible. How does that happen? So it's just such a great uh, issue. It's a massive issue. And aside from even just websites, there's apps, even dating apps that people go on innocently looking for dating apps. That's where traffickers and purchasers exist too. So it's just, where do you stop and start, the conversation? It's just really tough.
What is this dark web?
Literally the most horrific place that exists. Like the most awful things that you could imagine exist are on the dark web. You have to access it. I don't even necessarily know how. There's kind of like code, like they talk about code to create websites and so on and so forth. There's different websites and codes where you can access the dark web. That's where illegal weapon, arms dealing happens, where people are sold. There's that's where
Wow.
our information's sold. Like if there's a leak in the bank system, people are selling our information on the dark web. It's just where all the crime is happening. I mean, all the crime is happening everywhere, but the darkest of the dark crime is accessible through the dark web, and criminals know how to access it, and that's where a lot of child pornography or child sexual exploitation or abuse material is located too. Is on the dark web, where it is sold and accessed.
I had no idea there's such thing as the dark web.
I think I kind of feel like we've covered most of it, in terms of people being sold online and that word of mouth, those, because online covers so much, whether it's apps, websites, dark web. Word of mouth happens a lot too, but just not at the rate that, you can reach someone online. Video games, even where you can communicate with people online. And then when it comes to, I'm thinking of people from other countries too, or a labor trafficking aspect, that it could be more like they're responding to an ad, right? Maybe there's an ad out there of, hey, come, on a work visa and work for us, and fake photos of like their living arrangements, their work situation, like that's all fraudulent information. So maybe it's something like that. It could be an ad where they're connected with the victim themselves, for labor, thinking it's a good opportunity until they get there and those things are taken away from them.
I have knowledge about a case where they brought in some Russian girls, I think one or two Russian girls, saying that they were being hired as a au pair.
Hmm.
And when they came to America, they were forced to get into sex trafficking.
Hmm.
That is a pretty big syndicate, correct?
Mhm.
Because you can't just hijack someone's life because they come to America. And now
Right.
they're illegal. I was told that they were illegal, so the girls did whatever was needed. Now,
Mhm.
this you're crossing boundaries. You're crossing from Russia, you're coming to America, or from India, you're coming to America, or wherever, China, wherever. How do they go past the borders?
Every labor trafficking victim that I've worked with came here legally on a work or school visa. So they were given those false ideas of what that would look like. Like once they had their visa, their understanding was like you said, they were coming here for a job that they thought was legitimate or a college, or schooling opportunity. And it's once they got here legally with their work visa, their transportation, everything was through normal means, is when that they met up with the trafficker, that then that started of like that's not the situation where they felt like they couldn't leave or were literally unable to leave. um in other situations, it's like human smuggling happens in general. It's a willing arrangement where you're being smuggled into our country with whatever means you have. And so the difference there is human smuggling is a crime against a border, right? You're willingly engaged in a relationship where you're being smuggled across the border. That's the crime. Human trafficking is a crime against a person that's typically not willing, right? I mean, I shouldn't say typically, it's a not a willing relationship when it is true human trafficking, where it's a crime against a person that's unwilling. So they're very different things, but they can absolutely overlap. But to your point, again, it depends on their visa status. If they're smuggled here, and in that case, any means they use, I don't know. Because the victims I worked with all came here legally through through their work or school visa.
Just wanted to tell everybody Melissa will be back again, and I think
Mhm.
I'm going to be asking questions such as, now we have identified who they are, what they do. Now, maybe Melissa, you could start to tell us about how we can possibly find them, or how we can possibly identify who the criminals or the pimps are, and how to protect our own from falling into that kind of trap. Uh,
Absolutely.
and the reason why I say this is because I have a family friend's son, young kid, who was on the internet browsing, and then all of a sudden they got into his phone and they started to blackmail him. And being a 16-year-old kid, he was petrified.
Of course.
And
Mhm.
so I think that's something that I would speak to you about next time. And I think that's, excuse me, would something, I think that would help people in general who have no knowledge that all these things happen over here. So if you can shed light on that topic next time you come on board,
Would
and
be happy
can
to.
help us, would be great. Again, guys, Melissa Kaiser, I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your life and your busy schedule to help everybody understand what this is all about.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you, and for your really insightful questions. I think people learn through education, and so this is the place to do it.